There are three types of techniques in Muay Boran. The first are self-defense techniques. The second are agility techniques. And the third are skills techniques. Decide what works best for you. There are literally hundreds of techniques in Muay Boran because of the different styles that have existed. And so, to make it easier for beginners to understand Muay Boran technique, we have broken it down in three separate categories. So the first category would be self-defense techniques, which are really techniques designed for the average person to defend against an average assailant. So what that means is that anyone who may not have the time to dedicate daily training in Muay Boran and spend even 3 times a week training may just want to do self-defense techniques. And that's what that category represents. And then number 2 are the agility techniques. These are the techniques that are considered fancy because you do climbing, jumping, and so on. Some people will call them performance techniques. You could do that. You can call it anything you want. But these are the fancier moves where you do a lot of the climbing, the jumping, so on. And for us, we see this as agility techniques because obviously they work your agility, they give you better reflexes. It just makes you comfortable overall in terms of your athleticism. And the third category are the skills techniques, which comprise of the minor and major techniques of Muay Boran. Now, these techniques can be applied in self-defense, you can apply them in regular martial arts training, and you can also transition them into sport training if you know how to do the combat aspect of it. You can already see a lot of these techniques in modern Muay Thai fights. You can even see them in MMA fights. You know, a lot of the spinning elbows and a lot of the jump knees and so on, those are all Muay Boran techniques. Whether or not the fighters know where these techniques came from, they are mostly Muay Boran techniques. When you advance in Muay Boran, these are probably the techniques that you are going to be applying. It's not just useful for sport, but it's also useful just for martial arts training to just improve your overall skill. Now, as far as the individual practitioner is concerned, they don't necessarily have to learn all three. It really depends on the person. Some people are here for self-defense, so they prefer doing the self-defense techniques. Maybe they don't have that much time to train 3 times a week or so that's what they do. Then you have practitioners who may also be interested in learning the agility techniques just to improve their skills and reflexes, right? And so they can learn those jumping and climbing techniques. It's not a requirement, it's just a bonus for people who want to learn those types of moves. And the third category, which is the skills techniques comprising of the minor and major techniques of Muay Boran, is what we would consider the foundation of this system because it comprises of all the techniques that we apply from beginner to advanced levels. This is where you build a foundation of stance, footwork, the drills, and so on. Even the self-defense techniques become more advanced at this point, where we work more on chaining and reacting to an opponent that knows how to counter, that knows how to block, knows how to attack, and so on. So the third category, which is the skills techniques, is what we would consider part of the actual martial arts training. So those are the 3 major categories of Muay Boran. Now let's go over each one of them. The average opponent is not as savvy as someone who has a background in, let's say, boxing or knows how to move their head or some type of grappling move where they can take you down and so on. We're not talking about those types of assailants. We're just talking about the average person who try to do you harm. Maybe they're doing something stupid and they try to grab you, they try to grab your neck, your wrist. You know, they go in your face, they try to throw a haymaker. What do? You want to do some type of self-defense move to protect yourself. And so there are basic ways to block, obviously, to cover yourself, protect your face, protect your body. And there's also ways to deal with someone who tries to grab hold of you. The right way to free yourself, to counter right away, and then to just go to a safer place. When you're dealing with an opponent who doesn't really know what they're doing, then they can get very sloppy with their moves. You know, again, they could just throw overhands, they can overcommit. You know, they're not going to be bringing their hands back. We're not talking about a professional boxer or Muay Thai fighter and stuff like that. Then you're going to need a different type of defense for those individuals. Then you're going to need to work on the major/sport training techniques. But just for straight up self-defense, this would be the easiest path for people who don't have time to invest in the regular martial arts curriculum. These self-defense techniques are not necessarily taught in the regular classes. It takes time to get used to footwork, stance, and every other basics. For those who don't have that type of investment, they still want to be able to defend themselves. Having some type of defense is better than having no defense at all. Obviously, I would recommend, if somebody has the time to invest, to train more of the sport/major techniques. That way, they would be better suited to deal with someone who has some skills in, say, boxing or even grappling and so on, right? They know how to sort of counter. They know how to chain techniques and so on. But we're going to be talking about that on the sport aspect of the techniques. But as far as self-defense techniques itself, these are as basic as it gets. We're not talking about someone who is constantly looking at martial arts techniques and trying to study them. We're talking about the average person here. That's what these self-defense moves represent. The way we demonstrate and practice the self-defense techniques is by going slow and having a partner who gives you less to no resistance. And the reason why we do that is to allow the person to experience the technique with a full range of motion without having any resistance. That way it'll be easier for them to understand and picture what the technique is. Also, it prevents unnecessary injuries in case maybe somebody goes faster than they should, or they're not accustomed to the movement yet, and then somebody just resists a little too much, then injuries can happen. Somebody hyperextends their arm and so on. If you have a partner that resists, then the technique that you're working on will have to be modified based on how your partner reacts, right? So that's going to be on the higher levels. And we're going to talk about that when we get to the skills technique. But as far as basic self-defense, we're talking about the average person learning a basic self-defense technique to go against the average assailant. So you have an attacker who is going to overcommit, bring their arms out. That's when you're able to grab it. Maybe they're going to try to grab onto you. They're going to grab your wrist, grab your neck, and so on. That's when you use these self-defense techniques. If you're dealing with an assailant who knows how to counter, for instance, they know how to bring their hand back, or they know how to do some type of evasive move, then we're no longer talking about basic self-defense. Now we're talking about intermediate to advanced self-defense, and that would have to do with more of the skills techniques, which we'll be talking about later on. For those critics who think that these self-defense techniques are unrealistic, remember, this is not real-time training. This is not sparring. We're talking about cooperative learning with your partner. So that means you both have to slow down. You both have to take turns to understand the movement. And part of doing that is being cooperative, not giving resistance to your partner, letting them experience the full range of the motion. Again, we're talking about dealing with the average assailant that will hyperextend, overcommit, or throw overhands, try to grab you, and so on. And that's what these self-defense techniques are for. For the next episode, we're going to be talking about the agility techniques. So stay tuned for that one as we continue part 2 of the 3 types of techniques that we work on in Muay Boran.